In a world where all-time great bigs, 6'6 to 6'7 oversized point guards, and new age unicorns dominate the NBA, there was once a man notably shorter than Chris Paul, who was the biggest story in the NBA. He wasn't just a story because some average height guy made the NBA. This was the literal last pick of the 2011 NBA draft who beat all the odds, making multiple all-star teams, and even averaging 29 points per game in a season as legit MVP candidate. Here's a story of the ups and downs of point guard Isaiah Thomas. Don't be afraid to drop a like on the video, as that makes a massive difference for the channel, and sub for more content like this. Despite being Pac-12 Freshman of the Year and making first team All Pac-12 in his sophomore and junior seasons, it was always going to be an uphill battle when it came to the 5'9", 185-pound guard out of UW making the NBA. Sure, he was a rather explosive guard with a good handle that could get to the lane and create for others, but that was college competition. The NBA is a league with an average height of 6'7", with much quicker, faster, smarter, and longer defenders that could make life much harder for him when it came to finishing the paint, getting separation on jumpers, and even getting around defenders. Not only that, being 5'9" with only a 6'2" wingspan essentially meant that he'd be a defensive liability at the next level. That's why, despite measuring better than many hoped at the draft combine, he would have to wait the entirety of the NBA draft to get his name called at pick 60, the literal last pick of the draft by the Sacramento Kings. After being drafted, he was only addressed by a single media member, just one media member, as all the attention was given towards the other first-round highly touted picks. However, he was still drafted and had the opportunity to prove people wrong if he had the chance. So, how did his Kings tenure go? Well, since the Kings committed Tyreke Evans to shooting guard and didn't really have that much point guard depth, IT saw 26 minutes a game as a rookie, averaged 12 and 4 on 45% from the field and 38% from three, and made all-rookie second team. His second season was more or less the same, getting more starts and building in-game chemistry with all-star DeMarcus Cousins. But year 3 is where he completely explodes. Given 35 minutes a game and entrusted with more responsibilities on the floor, IT developed into a pull-up shooting threat who could score as a pick-and-roll ball handler, use his explosion to get downhill, push the pace in transition, served as a catch-and-shoot threat, and was a crafty finisher that proved doubters wrong that he couldn't finish among the trees. At the age of 24, he was now a 20 points per game scorer with 6 assists a game who looked to be a mainstay in Sacramento, but that simply wasn't the case. As a second-round pick, restricted free agent, IT would now need an extension to stay in Sacramento. The Kings didn't feel he was worthy of a sizable payday due to the inefficiencies the team saw on offense, his defensive concerns, and his overall fit with all-star DeMarcus Cousins. So, they didn't match his offer sheet in restricted free agency. You know what team that did offer IT a deal? Well, the Phoenix Suns, who had two other point guards in Eric Bledsoe and Goran Dragic. This will definitely end well. IT's stint with the Suns was really weird because he went from starting a majority of the games in a season where he averaged 20 points per game to now being a full-time sixth man. He was good, ultimately being the runner-up for sixth man of the year, but there had to be a better situation out there where he could reach his full potential. Enter the Boston Celtics. The Celtics at this time were in a very weird place, looking completely unrecognizable from the team that made the finals just a few years ago. In rebuilding years with Brad Stevens, the team won just 25 games in the 2014 season, getting a high enough draft pick to get Marcus Smart in the lottery, and would also trade Rondo later that year. Unsurprisingly, the 2015 season looked to be a lost one too, with Brandon Bass, Avery Bradley, a rookie Marcus Smart, and Jay Crowder being the team's top options, and with the team being on track to miss the playoffs. But near the trade deadline, the energy shifted. The Celtics initially had no clue whether to buy, sell, or stand pat at the deadline, but they decided to make a splash, trading for the 5'9" point guard. When asked about the trade in 2015, Former Celtics GM Danny Ainge had this to say: Isaiah is a dynamic offensive player whose scoring and playmaking abilities add to an already well-rounded backcourt in Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley. We're excited to welcome Isaiah to the Celtics family. After the IT trade, the Celtics were able to salvage the lost season by winning 8 of their last 10 games and sneaking into the 7th seed despite having a 40-42 record. The reward for making the postseason, well, was a date with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got absolutely smacked, but on the bright side, the younger guys on the Celtics team got playoff experience and demonstrated that they wouldn't just roll over and perish when faced with superior opposition. More importantly though, IT would average 19-5 in 21 regular season games with the team, and the Celtics already made it back to the playoffs despite there not being an all-star on this team. But with internal improvement and IT developing into that all-star in 2016, the Celtics would be competitive. IT averaged a career best 22 points per game and 6 assists while getting to the line 6.6 times a game. He also became the lowest draft pick in the 60 pick selection era to be named an NBA All-Star while putting himself in rare air. He led the team in scoring 56 times that season, became the 3rd Celtic player in history at the time to drop 1,800 points and 500 assists in a single season, averaged the 4th most points in the Eastern Conference, and had the 3rd most total assists in the Eastern Conference. With the incredible agility, crafty handle, and ability to snake his way into the rim, Thomas was one of the most explosive guards and dynamic scoring threats in the whole NBA. He helped lead the Celtics to the 5th seed in the conference out east, and the Celtics also had a top 10 placement in offensive rating. Moreover, the Celtics and Brad Stevens take it to a whole nother level in 2017. After landing Al Horford in free agency and drafting Jaylen Brown out of Cal, the Celtics were the 1st seed in the East, and IT became an All-NBA level threat in what was his best season as a pro. At 5'9", 185 pounds, he averaged 29 points per game on 46% from the field and 38% from 3 on 9 attempts a game, was an NBA All-Star, made All-NBA, was in the 94th percentile as a pick-and-roll ball handler, was in the 95th percentile as an isolation scorer, and finished 5th in MVP voting. Add in 5.9 assists a game, a 62.5 true shooting percentage, and clutch performances that gave him the nickname King of the Fourth Quarter, then you have an all-time great offensive season. With that being said, there are still questions to the answer. A point guard being the best player on titled teams was a rare occurrence as it is, so with this team being led by a guy far shorter than the average point guard height of 6'3", could the Celtics finally get their first playoff series win with IT? Well, it didn't look like it, as they fell down 0-2 to the 8th seeded Chicago Bulls that had Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Wade, and Rajon Rondo, but they're able to flip the script and win this series in 6 games. In round 2, the Celtics would face the Washington Wizards, a team that had one of the best backcourts in the league with a prime John Wall and Bradley Beal, had 6 double-digit scores, and had the 7th best offense in the league. But prior to this series, an unbearable tragedy happened. Isaiah Thomas would lose his sister China to a car accident, and at this time, there was no way basketball could be the center of his focus. IT was completely distraught and heartbroken at the news, crying on the bench with Avery Bradley beside him, and there were doubts whether he could even suit up to start the series. However, IT suited up and dropped 33 points on 10 of 18 shooting in 38 minutes of play. According to Coach Brad Stevens, he was incredible. He's an amazing player, an amazing person, and days won't get easier for him. But he somehow plays like that. You wouldn't think he could step up his game from here, but he put up one of the most memorable playoff performances of the past decade in Game 2. On his late sister's birthday, IT dropped 53 points against the Wizards, with 29 of his 53 points coming in the 4th quarter and overtime. This is what superstars and franchise players are capable of, and IT added more perspective as to what happened that night. I couldn't hear anything. I wasn't hearing the crowd. I wasn't hearing anything that was going on. I was just so locked in, not necessarily out of the moment of the game. It was like, this is a big day for my family as well. This series not only showed IT's ability to push through adversity, but solidified himself as the cornerstone for the Boston Celtics. It also showed that the Celtics should have been taken somewhat seriously in the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, but as it turns out, people were right to believe in LBJ. The Cavs were favorites given the talent disparity between the two teams, the Cavs being the defending champions and them having the Man of Steel himself. Not only that, IT's series got cut short due to him suffering a significant hip injury. And if it wasn't for Avery Bradley's magical three-pointer that bounced in the waning seconds in Cleveland, this would have been a sweep. In the grand scheme of things, the Celtics had a great season, but there was still a huge gap between them and the Cleveland Cavaliers. However, they could still bridge that gap through free agency and through the draft, as they had enough cap space to land a max caliber free agent, and another Brooklyn pick from the KG Paul Pierce trade ended up being the #1 overall pick in the 2017 NBA draft. That summer, the Celtics signed all-star Gordon Hayward from the Utah Jazz, who had just come off his best season of his NBA career, a move that IT celebrated on his social media. With the pick, the Celtics ended up trading down to 3 because apparently Danny Ainge felt that this wing from Duke was the best player in the NBA draft. I really wonder whether he'll amount to anything one day. So, the Celtics looked adequately retooled to make another deep run in 2018, but there's another big question they had to ask themselves. Isaiah Thomas was the best player on the Celtics team, suffered through one of the biggest tragedies imaginable, and still suited up for the team and played through injury just to give this team a better chance to win. However, he was still an impending free agent the next summer. So, do we really want to invest a max contract into a player who will assuredly decline due to his hip injury? Well, based off their actions, whether heartless or strictly business-oriented, the answer was no. With superstar guard Kyrie Irving demanding a trade from the Cavaliers to get out of LeBron's shadow, the Celtics swooped in and did the unthinkable. Despite the Cavs and Celtics literally playing each other in the conference finals, both franchises would be swapping starting point guards in a move that shocked the entire NBA. With that, IT would now be on his 4th team, but people were still optimistic for his Cleveland stint. While Kyrie was deemed to be the better player of the two, who were both drafted in 2011 by the way, people didn't view the gap to be that wide in terms of their production, and if IT was healthy, the Cavs would undoubtedly be one of the better teams, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference. But he just never got healthy. He didn't have the explosiveness that he once had due to his hip injury. That meant everything for a heavily undersized guard. So after many disappointing performances, the Cavs shipped him to the Lakers at the trade deadline, which essentially marked the end of him being an all-star caliber player. He had stints across different teams and paid contracts offered, but that's pretty much it, with him trying hard to find another opportunity to show out. The last time he played an NBA game was in the 2024 season, where there was a touching story where he earned his opportunity with the Phoenix Suns, but the streets will never forget the impact that he had on fans and across the globe. Playing against Titans, it's nearly impossible to do what IT did at his size, as we've yet to see his performance be replicated ever since. He may not have his jersey retired at TD Garden, but he's a Celtic legend to me. With that being said, let me know your thoughts on Isaiah Thomas and his rise to stardom in the NBA. What fascinated you most about his ascension, and do you think we'll ever see someone 5'9" dominate in the NBA again? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you also want to know what was happening around the NBA at that time, whether it be the 2016 Warriors going on that run, or the Lob City Clippers being the most entertaining team in basketball, click on the videos on the screen above.